Hi, this is Thierry Samlal from PMML. Today I would like to present to you the statistics for the multifamily market of the province of Quebec for May and June 2022. So we're in the context where the interest rates are constantly on the rise. The interest rates on the rise do have an influence on the market. Right now, what's happening is now that the interest rates are going above the cap rates in certain regions and for certain products, we're losing the return cash on cash that the buyers usually look for. So that's one thing that we're seeing with the hikes of interest rates. We're also seeing more cash down required to purchase the same properties that we were selling at the beginning of 2022, end of 2021. So if we want to sell at the same price, we're asking the buyers to put more cash down on the products. And also with the hike of interest rates, what we're seeing is for every dollar paid in mortgage, you're paying now more interest than you're paying in capital. So what happens is it takes longer to capitalize your building and to be able to build equity to take some money out of it. So the tendency is we're seeing the transactions maintaining, but if the interest rates continue to rise, we're going to see the prices readjust, the prices lowering. We're already seeing where the prices are already lowering in certain transactions. So if the interest rates go up, that is going to be maintained, and the prices are going to drop also over time. So I have a few statistics for you. I'm going to talk to you about the statistics of the month of June only because they're the most recent statistics. Now what's interesting to see is there's many sale of larger scale buildings in Montreal right now. Only for the month of June we had 4 transactions that cover $70 million, donc $70 million worth of real estate that were sold. Interesting to see that the tendency is maintaining. So in 2021, in the first quarter of 2022, we saw a large amount of transactions of concrete buildings being sold in Montreal, of mid-size, say buildings of 5 to 10 stories high, basically, concrete. And that tendency is maintaining. The average value for a concrete asset of that type right now, we're talking about around $165,000 per door. Now, what's interesting to see also is that values being maintained over time, and the cap rates are maintaining also. We're talking about cap rates around 3%. Very interesting to see that the institutional buyers, some family office, large-scale family office buyers, and some REITs are still purchasing these assets and maintaining the pricing that we've seen since last year. So of course, most of those buyers do not need to have conventional financing. Often they use their own in-house financing, and also they have public financing. So that helps to go get a product at a good value price per door, and then reposition the asset on the mid to short term. So very interesting in that fact. Many transactions in the 12 to 24 category, and most of the transactions between 5 and 11 doors. That's normal. Most of Montreal was built at 5 to 11 doors. If we're looking at the cap rates in the smaller assets, we're approximately 3.5 in the mid-size assets, around 4, 4.1, 4.2, 4.3. The price range, overall price range of assets are between 165 to 200,000 in average. The smaller assets closer to 200,000. Now, of course, most of those transactions took place a few months ago where the interest rates were much more interesting. So it'd be interesting to see how the price per door is going to be affected in the next few months if the interest rates continue to rise. Now, if we're talking about Quebec City, Most of the transactions in Quebec City were in the smaller assets for 5 to 11 doors. And we're seeing the average cap rate at about 4.5, about 125,000 per door. Of course, that's all types of assets mixed in, owner heated, tenant heated, owner electric, tenant electric, all that's mixed in into one big figure, of course, but it gives us a tendency. So it's interesting to see that maybe the Quebec City market seems to be readjusting its pricing to take in consideration the increase in interest rates. And that's being done on a very, very short term. So Quebec City seems to be adjusting faster than Montreal. That's normal because usually when there's a rise of interest rates, what happens is that the buyers leave the regions a little bit more and come in back into protected assets in the urban areas, for example, in Montreal. And so less buyers in the outskirts, less buyers in the secondary main markets, if you like, and buyers coming back into the GMA in larger quantities to buy assets, and that's maintaining the pricing, right? So that's what we're seeing right now. Sherbrooke City, University City, many transactions, price per door maintaining. We have a $8 million volume for June, which is not that high, because usually we see $11 million for Sherbrooke per month in average, but $8 million is more than reasonable in today's market, considering the time of the year. And cap rates going from 4.1 to 4.5 in average, and prices per door maintaining between 85,000 to 97,000 to 100,000. So, and that's an average, of course, and that's for all assets. So you have to take in consideration that if you want to sell a building, contact us, contact me, and I'll do the evaluation for you. These are general figures, but it does give you an idea of the market tendencies. So very interesting to see that that's being maintained in Sherbrooke. Sherbrooke, which is a very stable market, by the way, always has been for the past 2 years. Let's talk about Gatineau, close to the Ottawa region, right across the river, basically, right across the Ottawa River. One side Ottawa, the other side Gatineau. So Gatineau is a market that's been picking up in speed. I've been talking to you about Gatineau for months. What's interesting is that very little transactions took place in Gatineau, mostly for smaller buildings between 5 and 11 units. Of course, why? A lot of land is being sold. A lot of density is being gained right now. So we're seeing lots that had authorization for buildings of 6 stories high, and then buyers, buying those pieces of land, going back to the city, going back to the drawing board, and coming back with authorizations for 8 to 10 floors. Very interesting to buy land right now in Gatineau. So that being said, let's look at 10 large transactions now that took place in May and in June of 2022. What we're seeing here, and I chose these 10 transactions, I asked my analysts, give me the 10 largest transactions that took place in the province of Quebec, and almost all of them took place in Montreal. So this is just to explain the tendency of buyers coming back into the main market, which is Montreal, and buying these assets, which are very well located, all of them, and mostly located in the western part of Montreal. So if you take Montreal, you split it, St. Lawrence Boulevard in the middle, eastern part is to the east, the western part is to the west. Most of the assets, of these larger assets, were sold in the western part. Do note that most of the larger assets were also built in the western part also. So we're not creating anything here. It's this typical normal market for Montreal. So I would like to talk to you about an asset sold in Ville-Marie, downtown Montreal, close to downtown, on the western part, close to Concordia University, very close to my office. Just west of all the tall buildings in downtown Montreal. And this asset went for close to $180,000 per door for close to 140 units. The seller is somebody that's leaving the market. He sold almost all of his assets, and the buyer is an institutional developer purchaser that came to buy this asset, and that already owns about 2,000 units in Montreal. It's normally not the type of asset they would buy. Usually they would buy small towers. This one is more like, it's 8 stories high, very large asset. It seems to have very large units inside of it, so it's definitely a value add on the short term. The reason why the buyer bought this asset is probably just to gain the number of doors in the immediate region. And don't forget that being so close to downtown Montreal, on the long term, more than likely the city is going to expand. Downtown Montreal core is in expansion right now. We could see it to the west. This building is located to the west, so the land is going to be worth a lot in value. So that we have to consider also in this purchase. One piece of land sold in DDO for about 80 units. And what's interesting with that piece of land, and I wanted to talk to you about this sale because, first of all, it's in the western part of Montreal, which is known by a lot of outside buyers. They know the western part of Montreal. Why? Because the international airport is there, and when you fly over, you land, you're in the western part of Montreal. So this building, about 116 units, is very vast in size. But what I found interesting is the immediate neighbor, which had a fire in his building, is demolishing his building and is rebuilding on the lot. So whatever we rebuild on that lot, if ever it's more densified than the existing lot, we're adding units on top of it. Well, of course, if the city gave authorization to a builder to build 6 floors next door, what happens with my asset that I just bought that has, in this case, 3 floors above ground? Well, then I could demolish it, build a larger asset. So right there at that purchase point, the buyer's made money on his purchase. Very interesting. By the way, it's a major developer that builds large-scale buildings that bought this asset. So I'm guessing that he does have a plan of maybe optimizing the site by redeveloping it. One asset in Dorval. Dorval is really popular right now, 80 units, very close to the highway, but very, very close to the airport. When I mean very close, it's right next to it. So, and very close to intermodal station, which includes a train station, also a light train station, and the International Airport of Montreal, and the REM, of course. So all that combined makes it that proximity to transportation. You're in a Todd, it's definitely worth it to purchase a building in a Todd. That purchase went for about $140,000 a door. Very interesting sale. 3 assets that sold in Côte-Saint-Luc. Two of those assets, one buyer was involved. Another one of those assets, another buyer was involved. But we're talking about a 120 door approximate size building, 108 door, and a close to 60 door. Now, 2 different buyers, but of the same category. So we're talking about buyers which are very active on the market and have been purchased, in the case of one buyer, purchasing and selling a lot of buildings since the past three years. In the case of the other buyer, just adding buildings to this portfolio with in-house generated money, but also with international money coming in to this private investment fund that was virtually created by this buyer. So congratulations to those buyers. They're well located, already active in Quebec. They're local. So interesting to see that, although we have buyers coming out from the outside of institutional type and then from larger family offices, we also have small buyers that became big on the short term. I'm talking about 5 years, that were able to scale up their portfolios and sum up to 1,000 doors, which is really interesting to look at. I have another building here that sold in Villeray. Once again, typical, it's a seller that's leaving the market. This is one of his last assets, and a very active buyer that did a lot of financing, refinancing in the past 2 years, and that's just pumping out the money of that equity and just buying, even though there's zero return on the asset, but knowing that on the overall, in 5, 6, 7 years, they'll be able to pick up in value. One last building I would like to talk to you about. I know I said we would go through 10, but I think that we've really summed up the market here. This last building was sold in Otterburn Park. Interesting asset because it's a 2022 construction. 16 5.5s. When you're in region, first outskirt and second outskirt of Montreal, notably second outskirt of Montreal. People in those areas look for larger size units. We're talking about 5.5, so very popular. And if you're downtown Montreal, a lot of people are going for studios in 3.5s, which is logical in any major city, right? But this one that sold in Otterburn Park went for close to $320,000 per door. What I found interesting here is the price per door, because the person had to build this asset. So most of the assets sold in that category are going for $345, $350 per door. This one went for $320 per door, which means that more than likely the builder got the piece of land for a good price and didn't have that many soft costs and probably developed the products in advance. I'm guessing, because just to stay lucrative in this type of deal, what I'm seeing normally is I'm seeing these assets sold for closer to $340,000 to $350,000 per door. So I did look at the digits. I do find the sale interesting for the seller, but also very interesting for the buyer on the short to midterm. So if we sum things up, we're in a market where the interest rates are on the rise. In the larger scale buildings, we're maintaining our pricing, we're maintaining our cap rates. Interesting to see what's going to happen if the interest rates continue to go up and we go into negative cap rates, sorry, not negative cap rates, but negative return. As you know, the cash-on-cash return on a building is based between the cap rate and the interest rate. So when the interest rates goes above, and we have variations like that, the price readjusts automatically. And that's what we're seeing right now. So interesting to see in the next few months what's going to happen with the prices of these larger assets. For the smaller assets, prices are maintaining, although notice one thing is that what we're looking at now started in transactions 6 months ago at lower interest rates. So if the buyers were able to lock in their interest rates as we're going along, since we had a very, very high hike, then they're able to get more mortgage and get better return and capitalize more on the short term. So probably their pricing is more interesting now than what we're going to see a few months from now. So it was a pleasure giving you information today. If you have any questions, you're looking to buy land, go see our landdev.ai site. For smaller buildings, goplex.ca. For our larger scale assets, pmml.ca. I'm always available, a phone call away. If you need an evaluation for your property, you have questions on the market, you're looking to sell, you want to purchase an asset, feel free to contact me, send me an email, and I will get back to you shortly. Have a great day, and let's see yourselves next month.